Hi, everybody. I'm Jordan Blitzer. I'm Associate Director of Admissions at Columbia Business School. I have the great privilege of being also as an admissions team member, the liaison and I guess co-conspirator with Columbia Women in Business. So I'm really excited to, introduce you all or reintroduce some of you who may already know a little bit about Quibb to our wonderful women's organization on campus. Just a little bit about where we're going today, quick agenda. We will be doing some introductions, as you can see from the side. I am joined by two wonderful current students who are board members. I'll let them do their own introductions. Then we're going to dive into a Quib overview. So obviously the title of this event is Meet Quib. So it's to learn a little bit about what the club is all about and what they do year over year and new initiatives. And then most fun part is we'll be taking live Q&A from you all as well. My colleague Kate Holden is here. She's monitoring the Q&A box. We also really appreciate those of you who submitted questions ahead of time. We will hopefully get to as many of those pre-submitted and submitted during the session questions that y'all have. And with that, I will take no more time, but let us get into introductions. So Amanda, do you mind kicking us off?
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Amanda Morris. I'm a second year at CBS. I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia. Prior to CBS, was a management consultant at Accenture. Why I chose CBS was a strong network and opportunities for mentorship, which we will touch upon as part of this presentation, as Quibb has been a huge part of that. But outside of Quibb, I'm also on the board for BBSA, which is the Black Business Association, for Follies, which is our kind of SNL sketch comedy club. Also CBS Reflects, which works to advocate for diversity here at Columbia. And then I'm also on my cluster board. The cluster is 70 to 80 people that you take all of your core classes with. So all that to say is CBS has lots of opportunities for leadership if you're interested. Post CBS, I plan on going into tech, but this summer I was actually in investment banking. So also lots of opportunities to pivot and transition. And in my free time, I like to give great, more like mediocre tarot card readings to all my friends. So that's a bit about me.
How long have you been doing the tarot cards?
I started during quarantine last year. I've gotten pretty good. I can read out for 6 months-ish. So, getting better and I'm right most of the time. So it's great.
Well, I think we need to set up time offline to do something about that. Absolutely. I would love to have my cards read. So fun fact, thank you so much. And Hannah, you're next.
Hey, Amanda, I'm going to put a hold on your calendar for my card reading too. I love that. Hi, everyone. Hannah Slaughter here. I am a J-term student. So I just started CBS in January of this year, originally from a small town in Indiana, and moved to New York City about 9 years ago to do my undergraduate, also at Columbia University. So I'm what they call a double lion. I came back for round 2. And prior to CBS, I was actually a strategy and analytics consultant at Deloitte. I did a lot of cross-industry work, but found my home in more of the financial services industry. And for me, the why CBS was really being able to plug into a growing entrepreneurial ecosystem that gave me access to really top industry leading professionals, experts, and like-minded founders in New York City. Columbia's entrepreneurship program is something I was exposed to as an undergrad, just kind of on the edges of that. And I just was always very excited to kind of come back and be part of that community. So my time here at CBS has been focused on taking all of my core classes in the last 9 months, but also building a fintech startup with a fellow J-term student. So we launched our company in January of this year and have built out quite a team and are looking to pursue that pretty much full time for the rest of our time here at CBS. So happy to talk a little bit more about that experience. For me at CBS, I'm obviously on the Quib board. I'm also on the board for the Columbia Entrepreneurs Organization, and I serve as an academic chair for our cluster board. So helping students kind of navigate, especially the first year, from an academic perspective. Prior to, or post to CBS rather, I plan to return to Deloitte Consulting, and then a longer term goal of mine is to kind of go full time into entrepreneurship. So those are kind of my near term and long term goals. And then fun fact, I actually was trained and performed as a concert pianist for many years prior to my undergrad. So happy to talk a little bit more about that. But when I have free time, I love going to concerts, obviously pre-COVID, but that's a bit about me.
Do you still perform?
I don't perform. I practice when I can. The biggest barrier to that is finding a piano in New York City. So I have been able to sneak a few into different lounges and churches around campus to practice a little bit, but currently do not have a set of keys in my apartment and hope to get some in the near future. But miss live concerts tremendously, as I'm sure we all do, and can't wait to get back to like Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center and just take that all in. So
yes, it's exciting that some of that stuff is starting to open back up.
For sure.
I was going to be very impressed if you had a piano in your New York City apartment, but you know, there's a lot of places on campus to find great stuff. So that's
very true.
All right, so I think Hannah, you're actually going to continue and present a little bit about the Quib's general mission. Do you want to take that?
Happy to. So our mission for our club is to really foster a lifelong community that enables all CBS women to achieve their personal and professional aspirations. We do this through programming, mentoring, coaching, and advising, and providing education, support, and friendship to our members. And I think this really, in a nutshell, captures this kind of community-oriented aspect of the Women in Business Club that I found to be very true since joining earlier this year. So that's a little bit about kind of what our mission and vision is. For this year's board, our co-presidents who couldn't join today because they're doing some other club activities on campus for current students, but today, our short-term and long-term goals are really centered around 4 pillars. And the first is to increase representation within our Columbia community. We also want to further build that community. We want to enhance professional development and to finally provide inclusive and transparent leadership. So that's a little bit about kind of what our vision is for this year as a club. And I believe if I hand it off to maybe Amanda next to cover a little bit more deep dive on what we do.
Yes, thanks, Hannah. So Quib is one of those clubs that kind of runs the gamut from social to professional. So what's beautiful about Quib is it's really truly a network and a community throughout your time here at CBS. So these are examples of things that we do. For one thing, we help with, career and corporate relations. So usually we have a mentor we get paired up with your first and second year. And they're aligned by your career. So they can kind of help you through that recruiting process. Quib also has close relationships with some of the executive in residence, which is a program through the CMC where former executives come and you can have like unfiltered one-on-one conversations with them. So Quib has made sure we had a lot of women be a part of that program. Additionally, we have the conference, which we'll get into a little bit more after this, but this year it will be virtual on November 19th. Virtual is not a bad thing though. So Hannah can tell you all about, some of the great things we've done both virtually and in person. Aside from our big conference, we have ad hoc events. This last year we had events on imposter syndrome and how to create your brand both online and in person. So while we do have these big programs, we also have more ad hoc events, and those events really build community because we also have less formal events where you're just going to grab wine with small groups of Quib women and really just kind of building those friendships. I touched on the mentorship piece just a bit, and leadership development as well. Quib has a huge board if you look on our website. So we also have AVPs, which are first years, because we really want, any woman who's interested in increasing her leadership abilities to have that opportunity. And lastly, we have Women's Week, which is in the spring, which we're also touched on. I believe it's April 4th through 8th. That's another big keystone event for us. So I think Hannah will kind of touch on those.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amanda. And I was just kind of scrolling through some of the questions, and I think actually this is a great way to address a little bit of the questions on how do we network with, you know, female founders, entrepreneurs, et cetera. So our two kind of marquee events as a club are our conference in the fall. So every year we host a full day conference that features, as you can see here from our last conference, just an incredible depth of panelists in terms of experience and diversity and industries, et cetera. So this is an event that will happen this fall. In November 19th is our conference date for this fall. So it will be a 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. event with incredible panelists and speakers lined up, some breakout sessions, other fun events planned, networking opportunities, etc. So that is one of the best possible ways to get exposure to other female entrepreneurs and founders and successful women in business overall. So our event will be virtual this year, just given COVID restrictions, but we're looking forward to next year, which is another, in the spring is our another marquee event for us, which is Women's Week. So this is kind of a similar opportunity like the conference, but it's spread out over a week where we'll have every single day, we'll have kind of a theme and a focus and a particular panelist or speaker come and share with us. And we'll have amazing opportunities, you know, workout classes, maybe wine. We're still finalizing the agenda, but different kind of social events as well as professional events to kind of get to know the community and to spend more time networking with exceptional women. Last year's, or actually it was this year, so this past spring, we had our Women's Week virtual, again, due to COVID, but Kat Cole was our keynote speaker, just a phenomenal entrepreneur and angel investor, just an all around incredible woman. And I remember that was one of the first Quib events I attended as a new J-term student, and it just blew my mind and how well and thoughtful it was planned out and the opportunity to engage with these incredible women in business, and definitely was one of the reasons why I decided to join the club. So highly encourage you to keep your eyes out for that, you know, and if and when you join our club, those are two events that we'd love to get support and helping to develop these. Happy to, if that, take any questions, or we can just move directly to Q&A, I think, Jordan.
Yeah, so thank you all so much. First of all, I just want to shout out our amazing Quib board. Two of the members are here obviously today, but this picture was taken at, I think, one of their board meetings. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stop my screen share. We are going to dive into questions, but before we start to take questions sort of from the general audience and from those pre-submitted questions, I had a couple of things based on what you all just said that I was hoping we could elaborate on a little bit further. So would love to start maybe with Amanda. You mentioned, you know, a lot of the great programming throughout the year, reasoning for maybe why one might want to get involved with Quib as a first year student, even as a second year student. Would love to know from your perspective what drove you to get involved with Quib, and even further, what drove you to take a leadership role?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main thing that drove me to Quib was that every woman that's in it, whether you're on the board or a general member, is really willing to help each other out. I think that is a community that's unparalleled, especially my first year, I was recruiting for investment banking, which is a very male-dominated field, right? And so through Quib, I was able to find other women interested in banking, and we were able to kind of navigate that process together. So I think the ability to have a community is huge. And I think it's just the exposure you get, right? We have such a diverse group of speakers and, events that you really find out about like jobs and careers that you didn't even know existed, and women who have kind of paved their own lane. So I think it's that ability to kind of have a community now and a community in the future that really attracted me to Quib. And then I just really wanted to be involved this year on the board as a Black woman. The intersectionality is super important. And I think Quib really acknowledges that. So I wanted to be able to give back and kind of build that out more. So I think Quib has just been all around, a wonderful community that I'm so happy we have access to.
I feel so blessed to get to work with you, right? Your role, for those of you who don't know, Amanda's role is really facing and partnering with admissions for prospective students such as yourselves who are tuned in today. So I was so excited to have an opportunity to work with you more closely this year and see all of the great things that you and your co-VPs are working on to sort of really help bring that to life. So thank you, as always, for all that you do and your passion about Quib. So Hannah, would love to actually ask you the same question, right? Because your reason for joining Quib might have been a little different. You joined us in January of 2021. And you said right out of the gate, you were sort of in awe of Women's Week. And I know you are actually a VP for Women's Week. So would love to hear your answer to the same question.
Yeah, thanks. And I actually recall writing about Quib in my admissions essays because I had exposure to a female-focused, women-focused group as an undergrad. I was actually on the board of the Columbia Women in Business, which is an undergraduate, or the Columbia Women's Business Society, which is an undergraduate club at Columbia. And that experience completely transformed my personal relationships, my exposure, like Amanda said, to different industries. It got me through consulting, recruiting. It did everything to kind of uplift me and support me. And I just knew that my CBS journey would not be complete without a similar experience. And so in joining in January as a new student, I did everything that I could to kind of meet and network with current board members back then and get to know the team. I will say I actually applied to join immediately in January as an associate VP, so that we have like AVPs as well as VPs. Our structure is more senior folks are VPs, and you can kind of come in as a newer associate VP. I didn't get the role. I was very bummed, but it's a very competitive to join the club from a leadership perspective. And so I gave it a second shot, came back, and was really thrilled to be able to join the Women's Week team as a VP. So for me, it really was kind of coming into CBS knowing that I wanted to find my people, find my cohort of really like-minded women in business, and to be encouraged and inspired by them on this journey. And I will say that it's met every expectation.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I think what you said, what you both touched upon around finding support, finding women who are like-minded, but also finding women who are different from you is one of the beautiful aspects of Quib. Something we didn't mention is that Quib is one of the actual largest student-run organizations on campus, right? I think it has some of the largest membership base on campus. So there's a lot of great women and men as allies. We should also shout that out, who are members who really can open your worldview up and can support you in ways that maybe you didn't even realize you needed support. So thank you both for that. I'm, again, so glad you're both on the board. I know that great things are going to happen this year as a result. So would love to sort of talk a bit more about collaboration and the ways in which you feel that Quib has fostered collaboration, because I think we talk a lot about Columbia being a collaborative environment and how important that is to the student experience, but would love to hear more specifically around how you each feel Quib has fostered that collaboration. And whoever wants to go first can go first.
Sure, I'm happy to jump in here. And I think one thing that off the bat that really stood out to me was the willingness of Quib, especially our new leadership board. So we had elections in the spring, and that's kind of when both Amanda and I, joined as VPs, and we had new presidents. And our presidents, our current co-presidents, are just so committed to transparency, open communication, really being able to have conversations with the other board members and the student, members themselves about where they want to take the club in the future. And I just remember having I think I submitted it in my application essay, but this idea of, we do so much for our community, but of current CBS students, but what can we do to really pay it forward? And brought up the idea of doing like maybe a backwards kind of, it's almost pay it forward by going backwards to undergraduate women and helping bring undergraduate women up. And so, just sharing ideas like that, our co-presidents were like, let's explore this as an initiative. And so for me, that's just a really strong example of how collaborative they are and really hearing what we feel are things to tackle and address, and the willingness to kind of shape the club and build an initiatives that support those. So for me, it's just an incredibly exciting club to be part of, and huge fan of our leadership.
Yes, I will echo everything Hannah say, and also say our board is very well connected in other organizations on campus. You saw the number of clubs that just Hannah and myself were in. So that runs the gamut for our other leaders, which offers collaborative opportunities with those clubs. So looking at programming, both with professional clubs, like your investment banking club, your media management club, and with your affinity clubs, your BBSA, your Asian business students, all of that. Since we are so well connected across campus, we are able to really like hone those relationships with other groups and really just increase the network of all the women within Quib, so that they can meet other people and just really grow their network externally as well.
Thank you both so much. I see that there are a lot of questions coming in, so I'll save my sort of pre-questions that I had thought up, and Kate would love to open up the floor to you to sort of share what's on the mind of our viewers.
Yes, thank you to everyone submitting questions. And I will say all of these questions are very specifically geared toward our fabulous Quib members here. So I wasn't able to type out too many answers, but I did press answer live on as many as I could. And I'm hoping to tee those up to Amanda and Hannah, as many as we can get to. So one that I've seen a bunch come in, and this was actually pre-submitted as well, is to talk a little bit about how Quib helps students and their members engage with alumni.
Happy to take that one, Amanda, if you want. So actually, there is a very specific, we don't have our alumni VP on the call today, but we have a specific team that actually does a pairing, like a alumni mentorship program. And so that is a big part. Again, one of the reasons why Quib was so attractive to me was I knew that there was like intentional, thoughtful pairing of you with an alumni. And so that is like built into our kind of our club and what we do. And that is like the formal process for getting involved with alumni. But I would say that the informal process is going to, Quib events, going to Quib, virtual events, in-person events, meeting panelists who are our Quib alumni, CBS alumni, and being able to kind of just meet them through that avenue as well. I think that we as a club do a great job of maintaining a live alumni base that we then lean on to bring in speakers for our conference, our Women's Week, specific panels, etc. So I would say it's a two-pronged approach. One, very, very focused on pairing you with someone in your industry of choice who has the experience that you're looking to learn from, and then kind of the ability to use events as avenues to really do more informal networking as well.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, even with a virtual environment, we'd have panels and then you'd have breakout sessions after. And I know someone who was chatting with an alumni who happened to be a panelist and was able to get like an in-semester internship that way. So I think, whether we're in person or virtual, Quib has a huge network that's very willing to give back. And so I think it just creates this beautiful ecosystem of all the Columbia ladies.
Thank you both so much. A lot of just logistical questions coming in, asking how you can get involved in clubs, and if there are any particular things or requirements you're looking for needed when applying for leadership roles as well.
Yeah, so actually today we have our Columbia Club Fair, CBS Club Fair. So I guess now we're like 2-3 weeks in for the first years, and so we have the club fair, and in this club fair you get to chat with all the different clubs and kind of see what leadership needs they have, as well as just upcoming programming, and you can join clubs. And then from there, for first years we have I can't mention the AVP roles. And, like any role, there's like a description that gets sent out, and, the process of becoming one, it's pretty transparent, not just in Quib, but across clubs. You submit an application, you have a brief interview. We love to see you coming out to events and that sort of thing. And then from there, based on your interests and club needs, we fit that role. And then on your second year, you can either, stay, reapply as an AVP, or just come in as a general member and apply and go through that same process. So I think, it's a very transparent process. All the deadline dates, who to reach out to. There's kind of no guesswork once you get in. It's more just about chatting with the other people in that role to see if you think it's a good fit, and then applying.
I was just going to chime in, and Hannah, I will let you get into it too, but I just wanted to sort of highlight something that I think I get in terms of questions from prospective students, which is, in terms of leadership roles, how many clubs do people join? How many leadership positions do people typically take? And, what I hear anecdotally, and you both can, correct me if I'm wrong, is that, you might be a club member in 10 clubs. I've heard of people being members in 20 clubs, or maybe it's 5 clubs, whatever you feel makes the most sense for you in your personal and professional path. But then typically people take on about 2 to 3 leadership roles in clubs. I mean, your slides maybe would tell a little bit of a different story in terms of how involved you two are, but typically it's AVP or VP roles in about 2 to 3. So you can be general members, or you can be actually a board member. So there's a bit of a distinction there.
Yeah, it's so true. And I would say that coming to CBS, you're kind of like drinking from a fire hose in terms of opportunities. Like, you're a new student, you're on campus, you go to the fair, the club fair that Amanda mentioned, is like, I want to sign up for 50 clubs. But I think the kind of the way to approach it is meet people in the different clubs, meet the boards, see what aligns with your professional interests, but also kind of your personal interests. So for me, to your point, Jordan, you nailed it spot on. I'm a member of maybe 5 clubs, but I'm on the board of 2 of those. And then I hold a board position for kind of my cluster as well. So in addition to all the campus clubs, there are also leadership opportunities within your, your cluster as well. There are leadership opportunities within the broader university on student government. So it goes, you can kind of pick from the whole menu, but I would agree that about 2 to 3 big leadership roles make sense. And then kind of the other clubs you join just because of interest and maybe, wanting to socialize. But that's, again, from my experience, Amanda, it's maybe different for you, but I think it's probably what we all hear generally on campus. Jordan, I wondered if I was scrolling through the questions. I think there were a few questions of whether the conference is open to perspectives in the fall. And as of now, I quickly pinged our presidents to confirm. As of now, I believe prospective students can join the conference since it is going to be virtual. So heads up on that, save the date, November 19th. We would be thrilled to have you join that, and more details forthcoming. But that's definitely one date to save on your calendar for now. And that will give you, I think, the best possible view of all the great things that our club is excited to be doing on campus. The Women's Week is still a little bit TBD, just because we're not yet quite sure whether it will be in person, if there's capacity constraints, or if it'll be virtual. So stay tuned. That will be the week of April 4th in the spring. So we still have some time. But we'll definitely be considering it just based again around where we are with COVID. But that I thought I would answer. And if I may, very quickly, I also noticed a lot of questions around how we collaborate with other clubs. And Amanda, I'm sure you can tackle this with me as well. But I think there's a lot of cross collaboration. There was a panel earlier this year between Quib and the Columbia Entrepreneurs Organization, so more focused on female founders. So yes, I would say that there's a lot of opportunities to collaborate with events and initiatives across campus. I don't know if you have any specific examples, Amanda, but I would say that's definitely something that does happen.
Yeah, definitely does happen. I know we also have some in the works, some of the affinity groups, just about, issues with intersectionality. But I think it varies every year. It depends on what people find interest in. Of course, like a Quib by Wine Society is always fun. But like I said, it varies every year. And so it's basically what you're interested in. If there's a certain club you really want us to collaborate with, let the board know and it'll get done. I think that like open feedback loop is also really huge within Quib.
And thank you for that plug, Hannah. We have historically invited prospective students to conference. So I'm really glad to hear that we're going to be able to do that again, and more information will come from Quib through admissions. So those of you who are joining today and those of you who are maybe tuning in to the recording in the future, we'll make sure to have that on our website available for you all. Kate, what other questions are coming in?
Yeah, so thank you, Hannah, for kind of pulling out some of those important questions and addressing them. Questions just about there. Thank you, everyone. We're getting a lot of really nice questions, and I'm hoping I can kind of lump them together so we can make the most of our time. So questions just in general about the culture of Quib. Some people asking about imposter syndrome and how has Quib been like a support network for you, or do you have any stories about the culture of the club and how it has supported you in your time on campus?
Sure, happy to take that. I would say that the best possible way to tackle things like imposter syndrome, feeling like, you know, you might be here, but you don't belong, you're not quite sure how to navigate recruiting, whether or not, you know, you have what it takes to do some of this, these intense courses, is really to just tackle it face on with like just open questions and feeling like you're in a supportive and safe space to ask those questions. And I would say that Quib is definitely that. It has been for me, that safe space, whether it's just one-on-ones with other Quib board members, if it's something that's, you know, something you're a little bit more wanting to have a personal conversation about, you know, having a coffee chat with just one of your fellow Quib members, or just broader conversations, you know, that we have as a club around tough topics. So I would say that it is for me, of all the clubs I've been involved in, the one that I feel is most accessible to bring that up, and the most, for me, the one of the safest space on campus to talk about things like imposter syndrome and things that we might tackle from like a women's only angle, especially here on campus. So I will say that we're very eager to get back in person. We've been doing most of our Quib board meetings, et cetera, on Zoom. So I can't wait to kind of just hang out and have a glass of wine with some of my fellow Quib members and chat about these things. But I will say, from just a feeling like the board members are receptive, the community is receptive, I definitely feel that and feel that support.
Yeah, I think we've touched upon the collaborative nature, the transparency, the open communication. But I think also, like, I have a WhatsApp chat with all the women I met through Quib who are doing investment banking, and through recruiting, that chat was going off. Like, oh, I got asked this question, heads up. And recruiting, oh, like, can we grab wine in case? Can we do this and that? So I think you kind of create these smaller pockets because Quib is so large. So whether that's based on professional, like, you know, professional goals or personal goals, you can kind of find those smaller communities. I think it's important to remember at business school, we're all here because we're making a change or we want to do something different and new. And you kind of have to speak up if you want to do something or learn something, because I guarantee you there's someone in Quib or just in CBS who has done that. So you can kind of get past, oh, no, I don't know what to say, and really speak up and say what you're interested in. And that's when you really get the full effect of Quib and all of its like abundance of resources.
Yeah. And just to follow on Amanda's point, which is something we're so excited about, is some of our board had the initiative and the thought to build essentially learning teams, so teams of Quib members. So you've probably heard about the structure at CBS where you have a cluster of like, you know, 60, 70 students, and then that's broken down into learning teams of usually 5 or 6 students. And that is the best possible way for you to kind of enter into the CBS experience, feel like you have a small support network, but then you also get to know people pretty quickly in your cluster, and then it just kind of grows from there. So one of the initiatives within Quib this year is to really develop kind of these, I think we're calling them families. Correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda, but it's like your Quib family. So we're going to have smaller clusters within Quib as well to make this experience even more personalized and to provide that extra additional support. So something we're very excited to roll out, and we'll keep you posted on how that goes.
I'm really excited to hear that. Like I said, you know, I'm the liaison for admissions, and I've been doing this for over 4 years now. My entire time I've been at CBS, I've been in this role, you know, working with Quib, and I've never heard of anything like that. So I think that is great. And it actually answers one of the questions that came into Q&A, which was around like, how big is Quib? Like, how many women who are part of the CBS community are actually involved in Quib? And I think it's the majority of women who are members. Maybe they're not all active board members, although, as I think it was Amanda said, the board is quite big. But I do think that sort of making it more manageable is just going to be a really great way to to really build the collaborative camaraderie of the club too. So I'm excited to hear that and can't wait to hear how it goes.
Thank you all. That does sound really exciting, and I'm curious to see how it rolls out as well. Questions about resources at Columbia Business School in general. Are there any particular resources that have been most useful for you and helping you getting closer to your personal post-MBA goals?
So many great resources. I think when I first applied to Columbia, I didn't know the breadth and depth of all that is here, but there's truly so much, both on the club side and at, the school level itself. But things that I've really taken advantage of, Quib obviously has been a huge kind of, home base for me, but also, your professional clubs, for instance, whether it's investment banking or tech, those clubs have gotten recruiting down, I don't want to say to a science, but like pretty close. Even for the more enterprisey industries, there's a guidebook in a way you learn to do things so that recruiting kind of becomes more formulaic than just like free falling, which I think is huge when trying to make that pivot. And I think even just in like your social clubs, right? Like there's wine, there's beer, there's follies, there's all the sports, there's so many things to get involved, and those people become, your friends, even in a virtual environment. I think people who were intentional about meeting people were able to do so. And I think that's probably my biggest piece of advice. People ask me, because I talk to students, prospective students all the time, it's be intentional, because there is so much to offer here and so much to take advantage of. Sometimes you can kind of get swept up, like, oh, everyone's doing consulting recruiting. Like, no, you don't have to. That's not what you want and what you came here for. And so I think, the resources, even just the Career Management Center, everything is just there for you for the taking. But I think if you come in with your goals that they, and actually follow through, like Hannah said, she wanted to be on Quib, and like she was able to do it. So I think if you come in with those goals, like the sky's truly the limit.
Yeah, and I'll just say from my experience, so I am not going through recruiting right now. I came here entirely to really expose myself to the entrepreneurship space. And so for me, I have closely aligned myself with Columbia's Lang Center, which is a phenomenal and growing community of, it's first of all a formal program run by Columbia University or Columbia Business School, but within it has a cohort of founding students, students who look to join startups, just a really wonderful network of folks focused on entrepreneurship. And so I participated in a lot of their different classes, like classes that they help shape, but I also participated in their summer program called the Summer Startup Track. And so for me, that is one of the biggest benefits of being at CBS so far, was to be able to kind of just plug into a formal program to help me build my business, build my network around that business, start to think about how, we're going to scale and grow and fund that business. And so for me, the entrepreneurship network at CBS has just been remarkable. And within that, incredible cohorts of like-minded female founders. I think in the chat, there was a question if there was a female founder specific program at CBS. There is not yet, but I've had conversations with Professor Angela Lee, who's a big entrepreneur, VC focused professor, and we're definitely wanting to create something like that. There's a program out of an incubator out of Stanford University that's focused specifically on women that we were looking at, that I think has just been a phenomenal program that we were like, we could use something like that here as well. So if nothing else, that example of, if you have an idea, if there's something that you feel would really enhance your experience and kind of help you build additional community and traction at CBS, you should be rest assured that whether it's the faculty or the club leadership or admissions, got to give a shout out to admissions, and are very open to having those conversations.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Couple of questions coming in about how other members of the CBS community, such as males, faculty, staff, alum, how do they support Quib and how can they get involved in Quib initiatives?
happy to take this one as well. So we've got a new initiative, and Amanda, if you know more about this, because I think it was just announced in our last board meeting, but there is another initiative we're working to build out called Quib Allies. So that would be, I think, focused again around people within the community who may not be may want to join as an ally. And so we're looking to build a toolkit for how they can support both, immediately the club on campus in terms of, the initiatives we're pursuing and the community we're trying to build, but also I think more long-term support. So that is still yet to be rolled out, but the Quib Allies is definitely one of our top 2 new initiatives that our leadership has looked to focus on for this year. So we will probably have a little bit more in the next time we chat with you around that, but the plan will be to make sure that we have ongoing conversations with folks who want to be, seen as an ally with Quib, and make sure that they feel like they can get involved, whether it's with conference or the Women's Week or just different other panels and events we have going on as well.
Yeah, I think. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I think along the same lines, there was a question of like how are non-board members as involved? I think you can be as involved as you'd like to be as a board member or as a non-board member. Oftentimes, even for this event, Hannah and I just both happen to be board members, but that was not a requirement to be on the panel. So anytime there's a need for all hands on deck or certain events need more hands, we post it out to the general Quib communities. Just because you aren't on the board doesn't mean you can't be involved in the planning and ideation, the actual execution of events. And then a lot of those events themselves are discussions and panelists, and those include both alumni and professors, both male and female, who are, experts in that industry. So I think in terms of more like the learning aspect is when you really see the professors and staff get involved, as opposed to more like the social things, which is really just amongst the members.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, like I've already said, I'm the liaison for admissions, but I can think of many of my other staff colleagues, including members of the Career Management Center, people in our Office of Student Affairs, who also have similar roles in terms of liaising and working with the specific VPs and AVPs that align with the mission of their office. So definitely that's the way that staff gets involved. And then just echoing what you both said, when I participated in in-person conference, I always remember seeing professors either moderating panels or leading keynote discussions with, very famous senior alumni who, the students would also be doing some of that, but it was also, I think Angela Lee actually was the professor who interviewed one of our keynotes one year. And sometimes they just come and participate as viewers and participants, as active women in the community. So definitely a lot of ways for non-students and people who don't identify as women to get involved.
Yes, I think there was a question about can like EMBA, executive MBA, be involved? Yes, we actually have a VP who is the liaison for executive MBAs. So we understand, of course, that they might have a bit different situation than a full-timer, but they're definitely welcomed and do participate, and they are represented. So they're definitely involved as well.
Thank you so much for highlighting that question about executive MBA. And there's also another question, Hannah, I know you're a J-term student. Can you talk a little bit more about your experience with joining clubs as a January entry student? And if there are others in Quib who joined in January as well?
Sure. So the good news is when you join in January so the cycle of elections happens kind of in the spring with the intent of giving the summer for planning to the new board, and then things really kick off in the fall, and then post-graduation, there's kind of the turnover to the next board. So when I joined in January, there was a board in place. They had already done the conference. Women's Week was in progress. So it was kind of joining an organization that was in progress. But the exciting thing about that is they opened up applications to J-termers for AVP roles, which I mentioned previously. And so that is joining in maybe not the VP leading the team role, but joining as an AVP to really support and help drive initiatives that were already in flight. And as I mentioned, I did apply, very transparently did not get accepted, but I was like, you know what, that's not going to deter me. I'm going to come back and try it again. And I realized then that it really came down to, you have to highlight your experience, but also like who you know, kind of show that you've networked within the community and done a phenomenal job of getting to know the people on the board so they feel comfortable kind of bringing you on. And for me, it was easy for me to join other boards. As a J-termer, I did join CEO, I joined the cluster board, but just in particular, as I mentioned, you know, the Quib board is an amazing group of women, and so many people want to join. And so what I found as a J-termer was, you know, just get in there, try, apply, and then as I mentioned, I on my second go around, I was able to join the board. And there are several other J-termers. Off the top of my head, I think we have at least 5 on our board of 25, maybe more. So it's a really good ratio of J-termers and who have joined the Quib board. And I think it's just a great opportunity for J-termers to kind of share our perspectives coming in on a slightly different cycle, and just to make sure that our two communities of August start and January start really come together and bond quickly. So I've had just the best experience as a J-termer, and I will say that there are great opportunities for leadership very early on in your time as a J-term student. And if you don't get the first time, you know, definitely apply again. That's my my motto there.
Thank you so much. That was a perfect response. I'm scrolling through. There are so many questions coming in, and I want to make sure we're getting to ones that will be most fruitful for the large group. Jordan, is there one you want?
Yeah, I was just going to chime in because I've seen a lot of questions come in around international students in Quib. And both of our panelists today are domestic, or we're US-based students, or US-based prospective students who then now are current students. So I thought maybe it would be good for us to try to tackle sort of a little bit around how Quib, or maybe CBS in general, supports international students. And I can sort of take a stab at getting started. And then if you all want to chime in with maybe some of the board members that you know who are international students, of which I can already think of a couple off the top of my head, and how Quib does support international students, that'd be great. So just high level, so everyone's aware, about 40%, this year was a little bit higher, but you know, typically it's around 40% of our student base is international by citizenship. So that makes for a really amazing global MBA experience, even if you are just here in New York City, which is a pretty global place to begin with. But you know, I think the ways in which I've seen Quib, and other clubs for that matter, support international students really has been twofold. One, through their mentorship opportunities, again, connecting members with alumna, or, you know, if it's not Quib, with other just alums in general who come from similar backgrounds, but also come from similar geographic regions, or the geographic region that that person wants to go into, matching accordingly. And then also through the recruiting process. So there is a robust sort of recruiting model support system through our Career Management Center for international students specifically, for those who are not looking to necessarily recruit for US jobs post MBA, but are instead looking to go abroad. So those are two of the things that sort of came to mind. Anything, Amanda or Hannah, you wanted to add on this front?
I was just looking at our board, and there's like 4 or 5 international students on our board. So they're definitely represented, and I can't think of a single club I'm on that doesn't have international students on the board. We're all just students, right? So there are differences, and our affinity clubs are different, but all the professional and all the other clubs, everyone's very well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it goes to the same question of, you know, international students, J-termers, like Amanda said, we're all students. We may enter in with different, you know, processes, different timelines, you know, but at the end of the day, we're all students. And I would say that across Columbia and CBS, I would say that the board representation is really well representative of the actual demographics of our community. So very excited to see that, and couldn't agree more.
Maybe we can sort of wrap with this question, because I think that it's sort of a nice one. I saw it somewhere and now it's gone, but Maybe you can each share your favorite Quib memory of your first year. I know we're only a couple days into second year, so maybe you haven't made all the memories quite yet, but thanks to whoever asked this question, can we maybe end with that? What's your favorite Quib memory to date?
Yeah, I think mine was actually recent. All the board got together. I would say it was a good, maybe 2/3 of the board was there. We went to dinner and it was just like the most pleasant, positive time, especially because so much of our time has been virtual or has, you know, we had caps on event sizes. And this was a time we all were just there and, you know, free. And I think that was just really, really great to have so many of us in one space because the dynamic of everyone's different. So it's always a good laugh when we're all together.
Yeah, I unfortunately was not around for that event, but the pictures looked great. For me, the one that really stands out was probably within my maybe February. So I had been maybe at CBS probably for a little over a month, and it was a panel, virtual again, but it was a panel hosted by Quib and the Entrepreneurs Association, and I was, you know, in the process of deciding where I wanted to spend my time from a club perspective, and also knowing that I wanted to be a female founder and trying to find my way. And as a very new student, I was just so inspired because they brought in the CEO and founder of Hero Cosmetics, who was a CBS alum. She's an incredible female founder, and just the conversation and kind of the dialogue around that event just really inspired me to not only kind of knowing that these were the communities that I wanted to be part of from a club perspective, but also that whatever CBS had in the water, whatever they were doing was right, because this woman was an alumna. She had come through the program and was just succeeding brilliantly on the other end. And for me, that was just a real kind of affirming moment that it was the right place for me, and these were the right people to kind of go on the journey with.
Thank you both so much. I am excited to touch base with both of you at the end of the year and see what great memories you built this year too. So I'm going to just quickly share my screen one more time as we're signing off, because I do want to share a couple of other ways to engage with us and learn more about Quib and meet some of the other women in Quib. So we are going to have what we call Catch Up with Quib on October 14th, which is a student chat with Quib members specifically. So please sign up for that if you haven't already signed up for the one in September is full, but we do have one available in October, and we'll host them in November and December as well. And then we are hosting this wonderful speaker series this year. And one of the women who we are hosting on October 27th, Rachel Tenbrink, she is the founder of Scentbird, and she talking about whatever's in the water, amazing female founders. That's going to be an extraordinary event. So did want to just sort of put it on everyone's radar. Of course, we already talked about as well, November 19th, Quib conference. Please keep that date as well if you're interested in participating. And then Kate and I are happy to have conversations with anyone who's on here or tuning in later, who's interested in learning more about Quib or the CBS community writ large. So there is our contact information. Please feel free to take it down and reach out to us. And finally, if you don't feel the need to speak to me or to Kate specifically, there are other ways to sort of generally engage with our office and our community. So did just want to share those as well. That is our general email inbox. Kate, thank you for monitoring the Q&A and answering as many questions as possible. Hannah, Amanda, thank you both so much for your candor and for sharing a little bit about your CBS experience. And it's such a pleasure to spend the hour with you all. And to those of you who tuned in, really appreciate you taking the time to learn more about Columbia. And we hope to see you again soon. Take care.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.